Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Today, President Boko of Botswana was sworn in. Many of the leaders, particularly in the region, were invited to attend his inauguration. Among them was Nelson Chamisa, the leader of Zimbabwe's main opposition party. He was interviewed and is trying to compare Botswana and Zimbabwe. We should stop flattering ourselves. The two countries are different. Botswana is a healthy and functioning democracy. Zimbabwe is far from it. And so there's no point in keep on pretending that we can compare the two. Here is just a short clip of him, of what he said in the interview.
For the continent, for a new Africa, but also for the region in terms of heralding an era of newness, an era of transformation, an era of effective transition. You look at it, the BGP was in power for almost 58 years. This is a smooth transition from one political party to another. It's a critical thing. We've seen Zanu PF in Zimbabwe. We've defeated them in elections twice, but they've refused to go. So we hope that Mr. Mnangagwa, who is here and is just 2 rows away from me, will learn 1 or 2 lessons about life after politics, life after leadership, life after public office. So that's why it is so critical and significant. And God has blessed Africa, and God has blessed Botswana, and we are happy we are here to celebrate.
Well, let's stop there. Chamisa says he has defeated Mnangagwa twice, and Mnangagwa has refused to go. This is becoming nonsensical. Chamisa is on record saying that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections, the 2023 elections. So, if we work on that basis, we can rationally say that the 2023 elections were not rigged. They were free, fair, and credible, because Chamisa plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. So if the elections were free, fair, and credible, and Chamisa won them, that's one thing. But even he himself admits that those elections were not free, fair, and credible. SADC and the AU had election observers, and they too say those elections were flawed and illegal. So we coming back to the same issue again. If the elections were not free, fair, and credible, then Chamisa lied that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. Because this is at the heart of the problem of Zimbabwean elections. Not only SADC, the European Union, all the election observers have said again and again that Zimbabwe is failing to hold free, fair, and credible elections. Last year in particular, Tim Pachedi did a wonderful job in uncovering the sorry state in which the voters' roll was. The voters' roll was in shambles. The Zimbabwe Election Act clearly states that a verified voters roll must be made available at least 1 calendar month before nomination day. ZEC failed to produce a verified voters roll. That is a historic fact. Not only last year, but in the past as well. Zimbabwe has never produced a verified voters roll. And yet the opposition have again and again participated in flawed elections. Zimbabwe's problem of rigged elections is threefold. Number one, there is Zanu PF itself. Ever since the country's independence in 1980, Zanu PF has never held free, fair, and credible election. Never. The 1980 elections, Zanu PF had these operatives telling people that if the regime does not win the election, the Bush war would continue. And once it got its feet under the table in 1980, it has done everything in its power to consolidate its hold on power by creating a de facto one-party state. Zimbabwe has never held free, fair, and credible elections. That is a historic fact. By the late 1990s, the nation came to the realization that as long as Zanu PF retained its carte blanche powers to rig elections, there will be no meaningful change in Zimbabwe. By the late 1990s, the nation had come to a consensus. They needed an opposition whose primary task will be to implement the democratic reforms necessary to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. People have risked livelihoods, limbs, and over 500 people were killed in the 2008 elections alone to elect the opposition. That is another historic fact. And yet, when you look at MDC, CCC's history of the last 24 years, they failed to implement even one token reform, even when they had the golden chance to do so during the GNU. Not even one token reform. And we're still, ever since the GNU debacle, MDC, CCC have been participating in flawed elections, knowing fully well that the process is flawed. Knowing fully well that by participating, they are only giving legitimacy to Zanu PF. But they've continued to participate regardless, out of greed. So that is the second problem in Zimbabwe. The first one is Zanu PF self. The second one is a corrupt and incompetent opposition that has been participating in flawed elections, knowing fully well that process is flawed, conning its own people to participate by telling them lies, like I've plugged all the vote-rigging loopholes. The third problem we have in Zimbabwe is the people themselves. The ancient Greeks were right. that democracy as a government of the people, for the people, by the people, only works if the people are educated, knowledgeable, and diligent in holding the leaders to account. There can be no denying that the Zimbabwe electorate, the majority of them, are deficient in all those areas. And this is the reason why Zanu PF has been able to rig elections for the last 44 years. The last 24 of which was with the connivance of MDC-CCC. And in all that, the people have failed to see that the opposition was no longer fighting in their corner. Indeed, I think Zimbabwe has got one of the most naive and gullible electorate on earth. In 2018, Chamisa told his followers that MDC alliance was going to win those elections because they've got stringent measures to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. The day after the voting was done, he was the first one to claim that the elections were rigged. The millions of followers who had believed him never asked him, but why then did you say you had stringent measures to stop the rigging? They didn't. And guess what? 5 years later, the same thing. 2023, Chamisa was telling his followers that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. Another blatant lie, of course. But the people believed him. What is worse, some of them believe him even now. They accept the elections were rigged, but do not accept that Chamisa lied in saying he had plugged the vote rigging loopholes. They're so naive and gullible, they don't see the contradiction. Chamisa is trying to compare Zimbabwe with Botswana. The two countries are like chalk and cheese. We can't compare the two countries. Totally different. Zimbabwe got the problem with the ruling party that has no regard for the freedom and rights of the ordinary citizens, including the right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country, even the right to life itself. But we cannot also deny that Zanu PF's rule would have ended if the opposition had not sold out. We have to accept that in Zimbabwe, we have got a corrupt and incompetent opposition. We have to accept that Chamisa is a liar. Here is a video clip where Chamisa was taken to task for lying.
Ende patakasangana na Trump akatibvunza naye vakomana Serious questions were raised about your behaviour in Washington, D.C. You did see some senior people on Capitol Hill, some Congress people, but you also claimed that you'd seen Donald Trump. You claimed you had a conversation with him in which you said he asked you how much you needed to move the country forward. You told him $15 billion, and he said to you that he would provide the money if you won the election. That was not true, was it?
Trump
It was not true that you'd seen Donald Trump and that Donald Trump indicated to you that he would provide, if you won the election, $15 billion.
All those statements were said by other people, not what I said.
Trump
Well, no, because there is a video which shows you at a rally in January back home in Zimbabwe saying that Donald Trump had pretty much promised you $15 billion. To be clear, because some people in Zimbabwe are still confused, you're now telling me you did not meet Donald Trump.
We did not.
Chamisa, in this video clip, is telling that he won the Zimbabwe elections twice, and Mnangagwa refused to go. That is another lie. The truth is, Chamisa lied that he had stopped Zanu PF rigging the elections. Zanu PF rigged the elections on both occasions, 2018 and last year, 2023. If you accept that the elections were rigged, then you also accept that Zanu PF won those elections, because there was no way Zanu PF was going to rig and lose the elections. So the lie really is in lying that you've stopped the rigging when you haven't. SADC have made it very clear that we, the people of Zimbabwe, have got to do our homework. We've got to make sure elections are free, fair, and credible, because that is the only way SADC can help us. If we keep insisting in participating in flawed elections, insisting that we have got strategies of stopping Zanu PF rigging the elections without implementing reforms, then we have got to accept the consequences. Because even if SADC, as they did last year, condemns the process as flawed and illegal, as long as Zimbabweans keep participating in their millions in these flawed elections, SADC will not deny Zanu PF legitimacy. There is no contradiction in that. It's clear. We have to do our bit and stop pretending that Zimbabwe and Botswana are comparable. They are not. Botswana elections were free, fair, and credible. Our elections were not free, fair, and credible. We participated in them in the millions only because somebody lied that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes and does not have the guts to admit that he had lied and claims that he won the elections. Which elections did you win? The rigged elections or the free, fair, and credible elections? Thank you very much for listening. Have a good day.